Good morning and welcome everyone. One moment while I just get my guests up on the stage. That shouldn't be too long. Feel free to let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat, because it's nice to know who we're talking to. It's a few familiar names in the list there. Cool. I'll just wait for Lauren for a second. Hopefully that works.
Hey,
Yes,
Stacey,
I can. Hey, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Excited to
Thank
be
you so
here.
much for coming on today. Cool. So thanks for everyone
Absolutely.
attending. And thanks for Lauren for coming on. If you're new to Relab webinars, my name's Stacey. I'm the content and social media manager here at Relab. And joining me on stage is Lauren Fong. Lauren has a really exciting role, I think, in Icehouse Ventures as an investment principal and also manages ArcAngels as well. Which leads us into the topic of today's webinar. We're talking all about women-led startups and a bit of insight into how Icehouse Ventures and ArcAngels are helping those women-led startups to raise capital. Usually in these webinars, we talk a lot about property and things, but we thought it would be a really great opportunity to talk about something that our team are pretty passionate about. As a startup ourselves, our CEO, Knight, has gone through 2 rounds of raising capital for us. And we've also got a team that's super passionate about women in tech, women in business. Unfortunately, Louise, our CMO, was supposed to be here today, but she can't make it. To say, because she's really passionate about this, but we'll have a great chat anyway. We also just want to have this conversation because I know it's pretty clear there's an uneven playing field when it comes to women in business, and I think there's a little bit of way we can still go. So I'm really interested to hear what Lauren says and what she's doing, and yeah, I really applaud what Lauren's doing in her work. I'm just rambling on.
That's very kind words.
Just a few admin notes for the webinar before we start. You will receive a recording of the webinar later in the afternoon in case there's any issues or anything, or you have to jump off. It will also be available on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions throughout the webinar, just pop them in the chat as we go, and we'll get to those in the end. And I apologize in advance if I've got any dogs barking in the background of my sound. Okay, cool. We'll get into it. Lauren, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you ended up at Icehouse Ventures?
Sure. So, kia ora, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lauren Fong. I'm an investment principal at Icehouse Ventures, as mentioned, and I manage ArcAngels, and I'll get to that in a second. So, my background is that it's a bit unconventional how I ended up in venture capital. I actually don't have a investment background, finance background, or honestly anything just to do with I guess just numbers or finance or anything like that in general. So I worked part-time for a startup, which at the time was early stage. Now it's late stage. So Crimson Education. Worked part-time for them when I was at university doing some of their marketing jobs. I was studying marketing at the time, so that was quite handy. And so I got a taste for a fast-growing early stage startup, and it was like 1 year they had 100 employees, the next year 200. It was just it was crazy watching them grow exponentially. And Jamie, it was cool to watch him just as an idol and watch him build the team so quickly, be such a great leader and execute on these awesome goals and milestones and make Crimson what it is today. So having that experience and that taste for that startup life was awesome, and I really loved that. And then I basically got referred for this role at Icehouse Ventures, and the role specifically said managing ArcAngels, and I thought, okay, what does that mean? What is that? So ArcAngels is a network that exclusively invests in women-led startups. It's also a fund as well with the same mission. So it's New Zealand's only fund and only angel network that will invest in female founders. And my job is to run that. So my job is to raise funds for the current fund that we have right now for women, and also to find new members or new investors that will invest just in these female-led startups. And I had a personal, I guess, affinity towards this or passion. I can delve into that a bit later about why I chose this role, or why this role I thought was well suited to me. But yeah, I basically, through my work, I guess, at Crimson, I also took a gap year and just discovered a bunch of things, went overseas and saw new markets and things like that. So I just had this curiosity, and obviously working in venture capital, you are dealing with new technologies, exploring growing markets every single day as part of my job. So all of that combined kind of helped, and why I'm here. So and I've been here for 2 years now.
I know your day-to-day life probably changes quite a bit. I know you've been traveling recently a bit with work and that sort of thing. But what does a typical day in the life of your role look like?
Okay, so a typical day would be, right now, because we have a fund that I'm raising, so it's a $10 to $20 million fund that will exclusively invest in New Zealand women-led startups. That's kind of a priority. So a typical day would be having a Zoom call or coffee with a potential investor, and basically trying to pitch them the ArcAngels fund. And then, that I'll, kind of foster that relationship over time, but I'll either meet with an existing investor or meet with a new one to try and get them into this fund. And then on the flip side, I have to find these, exceptional female founders to invest in. And so after that, I might take a pitch call with, or quite a few pitch calls with founders. And that part of my job is screening all companies, so male or female led. So after I've gone and pitched a fund myself, I'm then receiving a pitch from a founder. And so really awesome to just see these amazing ideas coming through from Kiwi founders, and then more specifically from women when I'm kind of on those calls. And then I'm also very involved in the community from the point of view of organizing quite a few events for our female founders. So right now we've got a female founder retreat for all the women founders in our portfolio. So I'm organizing that right now. And then, just kind of helping out with raising our other funds, and looking after sort of other aspects of the business.
That's so cool. That event sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We do it once a year, on top of kind of all the other events that we have for our founders.
And so going back on a point you touched before, what inspired you to support women founders?
Yeah, so it's just another part of what I do. I'm also I'm an electronic DJ and music producer. So, and I've been doing that for 6 years, and so that's always been a side passion of mine. In the last couple of years, it's kind of become more of a side career. It's just grown, and it's a great. It was a hobby turned into some sort of a career. But basically, when I was 20 years old and I became a DJ, it was such a male-dominated industry. There were 6 or 7 female DJs in the whole of New Zealand, including myself. And I was really young. I just turned 20 and decided I wanted to DJ, and I had no one to reach out to for support. So I watched YouTube videos and taught myself how to DJ, landed my first gig at a bar. Then I grew to playing in clubs. Now I play at festivals. Now I make my own music. I've evolved in a great way. So 6 years on today, I couldn't even name how many female DJs. Yeah, there's countless. It's amazing, and there's finally a support. There's more support. I mean, we have such a long way to go, but it's more empowering, and people are thriving, and it's great. But it was rough when I joined in terms of the industry and how male dominated it was. And so being cast as an outsider was really hard, but it didn't stop me from pushing through and getting to where I am today and the success of my music and my brand. So anything to do, any industry or any mission or any purpose that involves uplifting women and raising their voices, that just sits so well with me. Like that's a part of my life. Or that's something that I've kind of dedicated my duty to for forever, I think. And that just comes naturally. Like I don't need to. That's what gets me out of bed. I have enough passion in this to just want to do it for fun or just to help and give back. So that was really pivotal for me. And when I read the stats that globally, less than 3% of venture capital funding went to women-led startups last year and the year before. I thought this is the disparity is absolutely insane here and around the world, and I'm going to do something about it. Like I will take this on board and try my very best. It's a big responsibility to take on board.
3%. I didn't realize until I was like doing a bit of research around that. So like that's an insane number, and I don't think people
It
realize
is.
that
It's shocking.
when just like around the community, like it's not talked about a
Yeah.
lot.
It's not. It's really not, and that's why this fund that I'm raising, the ArcAngels Fund, is so important because it's a $10 to $20 million injection of capital into the ecosystem just for female founders, which they need, because if it's not for that, then they're put in the pool, but that pool is so unequal, and it's not a fair landscape at all. And so that's why it's so important to have a mechanism just for women right now. But the goal is to actually not have a mechanism at all, because we shouldn't need a fund just for women. Like that goes to show how unequal it is.
Just for a bit of context about like my background, and kind of leading into my next question, like throughout uni I was involved a bit in like startups, because I don't know if you know the Venture Up program, but I was in that one. So I
Yes.
was kind of connected with quite a few people around that time, and because I had the time, I was quite like involved in like some community things, and I really enjoyed the startup culture in Wellington. I thought was really cool. But then when I finished uni, I kind of got into more corporate jobs for a little bit, and so I kind of went out of touch there. And then when I joined Relab last year, I've gotten to know more, like felt more involved, and especially being like in the Icehouse offices, you know what's going on a bit more. And I feel like there definitely are more conversations than when I was previously like in contact with people. But yeah, it is. Yeah, there is a long way to go, I guess.
Yeah, I think when I joined Icehouse Ventures 2 years ago, I found myself having to like convince people to invest in a female fund, whereas now people are a lot more like educated and aware, and they don't need as much convincing. I think like every year I see progress and it's amazing, but it's not enough. Yeah, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, so leading into that, how are female-founded startups placed in the New Zealand landscape now, and where do you want to see that go in the future?
So I think it's good to be a female founder in New Zealand. Like just speaking generally from a wide lens. I mean, we have some amazing group of women who dedicate their time, resources, and energy solely focusing on female founders. So, for example, Teresa Gatting heads up CEO here. She was co-founder of My Food Bag. She only invests with a gender lens and gives back a lot of her time and support. Also Cecilia Tarrant, who is the Chancellor of the University of Auckland and the Chair of ArcAngels, another amazing female leader who invests and supports in women, and many, many more. So I think, and also because New Zealand's so small, you can easily like actually have a conversation with one of these ladies and they will help you or maybe direct you into the right direction. so I mean, we're lucky. We have these groups. We've got ArcAngels, SheEO, the Electrify Accelerator. We've got a lot of things going on. So that's really good from like a community and support point of view. But then, you know, if I were to look at the numbers and if I were to say, you know, overall, how are we doing? It's still not good enough. In New Zealand, the most recent statistic I have is that 18% of all angel investment went to female founders in 2018. So we are like slightly better, I guess, than I think like from, you know, other countries, but we could definitely do a lot more in terms of making the landscape more equitable. It's definitely still in the favor of men. Basically, and I think we might talk about this later, but yeah, there are challenges and hurdles that women entrepreneurs face that men do not, or their male co-founders or their male counterparts don't have to deal with that females do. And so it makes capital raising harder, getting their business off the ground, all of that more difficult. And in New Zealand, like I said, we have some great support networks, some amazing individuals. There's awareness, again, because we're a small country, we can get a message spread across like quickly, but it's still not enough. And I'll always keep saying it's not enough because, you know, I want to see like bigger and better change.
What are those barriers and difficulties that women face?
So one of the reasons that women really struggle to raise capital is unconscious bias. So there's many factors why it's hard as a female, but the one that I'll touch on today and focus on is unconscious bias. And so what that is that we see unconscious bias when women entrepreneurs are asked prevention questions versus promotion questions when they're pitching for their startup and asking for funding. So this Harvard and Columbia study reported that 66% of female entrepreneurs are asked prevention questions, not promotion questions. So some VCs here and around the world would frame a question into one of two ways. So promotion questions will focus on potential gains for a business, and then prevention questions, potential losses. And men are commonly asked the former, and women were asked the latter. So, for example, a VC might have asked a female founder something quite restrictive and negative, like what will you do to prevent yourself from like failure, or how will you protect yourself from competitors? Like basically just not giving them any room or any ability to talk up their business or talk about anything positive. And then the study showed that all the male, if a female wasn't in the room, all the male co-founders and male founder companies were asked promotion questions like, what does growth look like in 10 years time? Or what's your like ultimate goal, your exit strategy? And the result of this study is that the male founder companies who were asked promotion questions went on to raise 5 times more funding than the women-led startups. And continuing on from there, so unconscious bias is very prevalent around the world and here. And what's shocking is that some female VCs are also asking those questions. I guess that's why they call it unconscious bias, right? And so it's really important that we do training and people, both founders and investors, understand what this is and how it can creep in and really affect a woman's ability to raise money. So that's the biggest hurdle, and it's the biggest challenge. I've talked to female founders here who have experienced it firsthand, and they say it feels like they're purposefully trying to talk the business into a failure situation, and it's a constant trying to dodge sort of these dagger kind of questions thrown at them. And they said, well, at the moment, my male co-founders in the room, they don't ask questions like that. So yeah, this bias and it's just really shocking and really unacceptable, quite frankly. And I'm trying to work on making people more aware of it and how to overcome it. Just learning to maybe flip a prevention question into something more positive, so that your responses are more promotion oriented, things like that. But yeah, unconscious bias is the kind of number one, first and foremost, biggest challenge. Yeah. And then you have things like general, like, I guess, just stereotypes towards women. I mean, some of the women founders that we work with, they've been asked things like, what's going to happen to my investment if you have a family and kids? Or, someone said to one of our founders, oh, like, you'd have much better luck raising money if you were single. So just having those, those unacceptable comments being asked by male investors that's just going to hinder a female founder on her journey, which is a really, really shameful thing.
And I can imagine with the unconscious bias that people probably won't realize it at the time as well, and then they'll look back and be like, that's what it
Unfortunately
was.
not.
Or
Yeah.
even like not accepting that that's what's going on. I can imagine that would be really tricky.
Yes, it's hard, and like I just kind of want all VC firms, all angel groups to kind of be aware of it and learn about it, so that they are are aware of it, and they know that not to ask questions like that, and kind of make an active effort, concerted effort to sort of not ask preventative questions. Yeah,
this is slightly off topic to like raising capital, but I follow this UK as a female CEO, and she like started her companies and everything, and she was posting about this another female CEO was stepping down to do a role that they found that they were more like suited their skill set better, and but she was talking about all the media around it was quite negative, saying like, oh, like the CEO stepping down. But she was like, that totally flipped when like the Gymshark CEO stepped down. He did the exact same thing, and it was like, oh, that's so good. And, it filters all the way down into even just decisions that female can.
Exactly. And it's crazy because they will always be looked at differently and they will be judged differently. But I just look forward to the day or the time that comes when there is that none of that judgment exists. Because you're right, there would be no commentary or no negative commentary around a man. Usually they're praised for it, or they're like it's always seen in a positive light. But for a female, it's like, okay, what can we pick apart here? Like, what's the criticism we can throw at this? And it's just it's really awful.
Well, I'll make things positive now. Can you tell us about some success stories that you've seen through ArcAngels?
Yeah. I love to talk about this. So I think that one of our biggest success stories is our journey with a company that sold, which is, as a VC firm, our goal is to invest in a company, stay with them on a journey, and then we see a return when they get bought or they IPO. So one of our exits was a company called, you probably guys will know, called Ethique, and they're the non-plastic shampoo and beauty brand founded by Brianne West down in Christchurch. Really incredible business, and they were bought in late 2020, and I just think that it's such a great example, a solo female founded business. She literally used her some of her student loan, she was like on a student loan, had to use some money from that to pay for her first bit of I don't know, funds for the business, and then grew it to be a multi-million-dollar business. So really amazing, and something that we're really proud of, and just an example of why you should back a female founder. The way Brianne hustled and got through to to selling her business, and we only invested 4 years prior to that. Usually it takes longer before you see something like that. So her resilience is just something to be so inspired by. And she's one of the very kind of few companies that have done that in such a short time, and been able to be bought or sold. And another company would be Sharesies. So there's Brooke, Brooke Roberts and Sonia Williams, who are the co-founders for Sharesies, and they're the co-CEOs. So they're the women they're the face of Sharesies. They're at the front, and they are charging forward. They're expanding into Australia, growing the business rapidly, and I just love seeing what they do and hearing their story. We had Sonia talk at one of the ArcAngels events recently, and I'm kind of just inspired every time, because it reminds me that like we should be investing in these amazing female founders. Like basically, this, even though like statistically women are funded less, economically they actually deliver more returns. So they deliver 35% more returns. That's what the studies show. So women actually do more with less money. And I just feel like, seeing all these amazing entrepreneurs do that is really, really incredible, and just goes to solidify those facts that we see. But again, it doesn't really add up. It's just almost like ironic, right? It's like no one's investing in the females, but they actually return more. So Sharesies, I think, and then one last one. So they're early stage. But I want to sort of shout out to Thea Jones, who runs Asterix Astronautics. So what they do is they make power systems for small satellites in space. And Thea, she started this company when she was 18. She's 22 now. And just 2 weeks ago, she successfully deployed, her and her team successfully deployed their first prototype on a Rocket Lab mission in space. So they achieved what you call flight heritage, which is amazing. They made their prototype in their lab, then lockdown happened. They were making it like on their kitchen bench in their flat, and then it's literally in space right now. Her and her co-founders are still at uni. They're 22. They have Peter Beck support, so Rocket Lab support. It's incredible, like such an amazing story. And I just know like they like in their pipeline of like contracts and things, and think like more milestones yet to come. It's super exciting. So they're one to watch.
That's so cool. That's so exciting. Yeah. Shireen says hi. Apologies, I'm a little late. That's okay. You can watch a recording if you missed anything important. Thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on today. I hope someone takes even just like a little bit away from today, and continues the conversation. I think that's the main goal of this webinar. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Stacey, and to the whole Relab team for having me. I am always so happy to talk about this. I'm very passionate about it and live and breathe this topic, and just happy to share awareness around it. So feel free to reach out, and thank you for listening.
And thanks for everyone for watching today. There's a few familiar names watching our webinar, so it's really nice to see that we've got some loyal viewers. So thank you so much. Cool.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day, everyone.